prepare for meditation, I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, and we won't call him a guest speaker. He's our very own Reverend James Rodney Watson. Reverend James, as we love to call him, is celebrating his 20th year of ordained ministry. He's been a member of UnityWDC since 2003. He currently serves as the vice president of our board of trustees, and he is an active member with the Unity Choir, lay leadership, and chair of the Ushers and Greeters Ministry. From 1984 to 1995, prior to ordained ministry, Reverend James served on active duty with the United States Air Force as a contract specialist administrator at locations around the world. After the Air Force, Reverend James worked at Fannie Mae in Washington, D.C. for 10 years as a senior contract administrator. There he served as the corporate liaison to the Fannie Mae Foundation and committee co-chair for the Help the Homeless campaign for 5 years. In 2009, Reverend James became a federal employee with the Department of Defense. Today, he serves as a contracting officer and team lead with the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. He has been a member of Toastmasters International, and most recently, Reverend James is looking to become a member of the board of directors for the National Association for American Veterans. In his spare time, Reverend James is pursuing a Master's of Theological Studies at Wesley Theological Seminary. For our meditation and message today, let's give a warm Unity welcome to my brother, Reverend James Watson.
Good morning. Good morning. There you go. I may not be quite old enough to remember the heyday of summertime, so I'm like just behind that era. Shh. But you gave it such justice and such beauty and tranquility that summertime really needs to be tomorrow. Thank you. As you know, I like to open up with something a little funny, so I'm going to call this my church chuckle. The story goes that a church was in need of repainting. So the pastor decided he was going to take it upon himself to do just that. But he only had one can of paint. So in his ingenious mind, he says, I'm going to take all these different buckets, fill them with water, and I'm going to thin the paint out. That way I'd have enough paint to paint the whole building. And he set out and did that. All day long, he repainted the whole church. He was happy, he was content, and he went home. Well, that night, a thunderous rainstorm came through and washed away all the paint. So he comes in the next morning, and to his amazement, he sees the paint gone. So he's disappointed and discouraged, and he says, God, really? What? Why did you let the rain wash away all my hard work? So a moment passed, and in a thunderous reply, God said, repaint, repaint, and thin no more. I figure since Lent is coming up, we'd prepare ourselves for Lent. Yeah, I heard you, I hear you. I don't write them, I just say them. As the backdrop for today's talk, I will be using Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. Now we know this is a familiar passage of the woman with the issue of hemorrhaging for 12 years. But before that, let's dialogue a little bit about something we all know as faith. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with faith, but by chance, is there anyone in the house who's never had to deal with faith? Anyone? Don't raise your hand. Just know in your heart, in your mind, your soul, that you have not dealt with faith. If you haven't, trust me, you will. But the rest of us who have, you'll be able to join in this conversation. But what is faith? Is it real? Is it something that you turn on and off? Is it a fashion statement? Do we wear it as if on the red carpet for all the lights and the cameras, yet out of the spotlight find it difficult to fathom? Is faith a badge of courage? Is there big faith or small faith? Do you find faith to be elusive, a mystery? Bottom line, do you believe in faith? Now, I'm using these questions as sort of a lens for us to reflect on how we intimate faith in and through our lives. We may understand it and feel faith is simply just a part of our life. It's like the air we breathe. Faith is ever present no matter what. It's always there. Or we may struggle with faith. We don't quite get it. It seems so simple with our grandparents and elder relatives who just seemed to make that faith was a part of their life no matter what. I remember loved ones as being described as a man or woman of faith. What does that mean? Did they always have this faith? Is faith something that you can teach? What's behind this thing called faith? There have been songs about faith. Libraries, and of course now I add Google and Bing, are full of books about faith. Faith is the key. Do you know faith? Where is your faith? Have you lost your faith? Hold on to your faith. When all else fails, try faith. How faith works. Does faith really work? Perhaps it did before. Somehow or another, it's going to work again. Emily Cady, in Lessons in Truth, described this latter notion of faith as blind faith, an instinctive trust in a power higher than ourselves, whether or not we knew how it worked or not. We knew it just worked. Likening it to a child's sense of trust, knowing it's what you're supposed to do. Then, as we mature and develop intellect, we aspire to a more understanding faith. Through life experiences and lessons, faith is tied to what can be seen or intellectually explained. There's a physical application or property that shapes faith. Now, we can discuss the merits and challenge the distinctions between blind faith and understanding faith, but we just won't do that today. Today, we're going to focus on the broader perspective of faith and how we see it involved in and through our lives. But one more aspect to consider. We often hear when you're going through a situation, a rough patch of life, be it a medical diagnosis, a relationship torn apart, the loss of someone, professional challenges, or a setback, that somehow our faith is being tested. Somehow during these difficult times, if you're not steeped in your faith, that faith is nowhere to be around, that faith is MIA, and you're going through it alone. Where is faith? Is it over there? Is it up there? Is it back here? Is it under here? Where is faith? I know faith is around the corner, so when I get through this situation, faith will be there to greet me. Hebrews 11, 1 through 3. Traditionally, we've learned it as faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Now, there are two key aspects, substance and evidence. Substance, translated from earlier biblical writings, was subsistence. We understand subsistence to be the source, that for something else to exist, the necessary items and materials are brought into the mix to become the substance of that something. With this, faith is the source. Then there's the evidence of that something. Faith transfers that something from internal substance to manifested external existence. The substance and evidence are fueled by faith. Faith in your dreams, faith to manifest those dreams, faith in your desires, faith to bring those desires to fruition. The Message breaks it down saying, by faith, we see the world called into existence through God's word, what we see created by what we don't see. The invisible becomes the visible through faith. We know this through one of our unity principles. Thoughts held in mind. Now say it like you believe it. Thoughts held in mind. To imply that faith, your faith, my faith, is somehow being tested would denote a sense of pass or fail when it comes to faith. Somehow faith either passes and it's all good until the next situation, or faith fails and we're stuck in that situation. We're finished, we're done, there's nothing else we can do about it. That would indicate that faith, a spiritual essence, a spiritual energy that would emanate from the center of divine presence, is susceptible to the finite boundaries of humanity's prognosis. Well, it didn't turn out as I hoped. Faith must have failed me. I'll try next time. Maybe faith will work then. As my nephew would say, that's a resounding no. What is susceptible is our conscious minds, not faith. The test is in our thoughts, our conviction when it comes to faith. We can get so steeped in the outer realm, convinced that somehow that struggle, that issue, that problem is our reality. To overcome it would take a Herculean strength. No matter what, this is my lot in life. I got to contend with it. I just can't do nothing about it. These are the cards I've been dealt. Maybe one day things will change, kind of, sort of, I'll be able to catch a break. Those are your thoughts. That has nothing to do with faith. So we give up, accepting the influence of those around us to determine us, to name us, to claim us as they see us. Not faith, those around you. Just this morning, I heard one of those gospel classics. You know, back in the day when we played albums. Reverend James Cleveland's Where Is Your Faith? And of course, I sat there and all the years of the 70s came to mind. I was, as a little child, playing, but my mother was playing this song, and I didn't pay it any mind because as a kid, gospel music was just played every Sunday while breakfast was being cooked, and you just, as a kid, did your thing. But now it's taken shape and hold as I've gotten older. And it's a song where the words are between a Christian and a man who's down in his luck. Every time he would espouse some dilemma or trouble area of his life, the Christian would ask, "Where is your faith?" As he went on and on about his life, the Christian repeated, "Where is your faith?" And you know, in James's tone, it just resonated all up in your body. If you hear James Cleveland's voice, it was like a saw cutting through cement, because he would just get right to the heart of it. The individual's thoughts and emotions were so wound up tight about his life, he probably didn't even actually hear the question, "Where is your faith?" So then this begets the struggle that we have with faith. Faith is not being tested. Our conviction, our thoughts, and our actions within the situation is where the test really lies. So how does a woman of today's gospel resonate when it comes to faith? And I'll be taking it from Mark chapter 5, verses 24 through 34, coming from the Message. A woman who had suffered a condition of hemorrhaging for 12 years, a long succession of physicians had treated her and treated her badly, taking all her money and leaving her worse off than before. She had heard about Jesus. She slipped in from behind and touched his robe. She was thinking to herself, if I can put a finger on his robe, I can get healed. The moment she did it, the flow of blood dried up. She could feel the change and knew her plague was over and done with. At the same moment, Jesus felt energy discharging from him. He turned around to the crowd and asked, "Who touched me? Who touched my robe?" His disciples, a little perplexed, but what are you talking about? With this crowd pushing and jostling you, you're asking who touched you? Dozens of people have touched you. But he went on asking, looking around to see who had done it. The woman, knowing what had happened, knowing she was the one, stepped up in fear and trembling, knelt before him and gave him the whole story. Jesus said to her, "Daughter, you took a risk of faith, and now you're healed and whole. Live well, live blessed, be healed of your plague." Now, this is one of the most familiar messages about faith. Here we have a woman suffering during this time in history with a debilitating physical condition of hemorrhaging. She endured it for 12 years. Now, significantly, 12 metaphysically represents spiritual fulfillment, the 12 disciples, the 12 powers. She went to the authorities, the doctors, the healers, who not only took all her money, all her resources without finding a cure, they, as we would say today, played her. For in those times, physical conditions such as hers would render her impure and unfit for society. Although that she thought were helping her, knew very well they couldn't. They were just using her. It was also understood that to be touched by a holy man, one would be healed or saved. Conversely, if an unclean individual touched a holy man, it would render him unclean. So you have this woman, she's suffering with this condition. She can't get cured because the law of the land has labeled her unfit. She has no resource and no option, it would seem. I can only imagine her conscious mind. She probably felt it's just going to have to be this way. Yes, she was seeking help, trying to find a cure, grasping at chance after chance, hoping relief would come. Now I know there's at least one of us today who's been in this situation. We've gotten to our wits' end and a problem, a concern, and we start grasping for whatever answer that comes our way, thinking that's going to be it, only to find ourselves still churning in that situation. No matter what avenue you take, you just can't seem to shake it. You turn to friends, loved ones, family. Nothing works. You come against the naysayers, the doubters, the haters, those who continue to stir up even more chaos in your situation, which then gets into your thoughts, convincing you that they're right about you. The desire for something different, something better, for change seems a fleeting thought, and you just want to give up. I'll just have to live with it. Hope that somehow, some way, things might get better. Until then, you just endure it. No matter what, I'm going to be stuck in this entry-level position. I've done everything I can. Showed up on time. But there's always that voice that's saying, no, you're not going to be promoted. You played the game, you still won't be promoted. That relationship that has turned inside out, upside down, been at sorts for such a long time. You've sought counseling, mediation. Nothing is working. What do I do now? Otis Redding had a song entitled, "Try a Little Tenderness." I say today, try some faith. But this entails taking a risk. A risk in turning away from those around you who may not have your highest good at mind, who sees you as perhaps a threat to them, instead of dealing with their own hang-ups, would rather tear you down under the guise of being your friend. A risk in getting out of your comfort zone with the conundrum of your life. And how about closing the blinds to the window of that situation at hand? That mounting concern on the job, that troubled relationship, the appearance of suffering as a result of a devastating circumstance, and while you're at it, turn off your own thoughts of doubt, lack, insufficiency, disappointment, despair, anger, dis-ease, or whatever sense that is drawing you away from even seeing a glimpse of your highest good. This is risky because we get comfortable in our situation. We wrap it around us like a blanket because we've been in it so long, it's become part of our lives. What's the saying? Misery loves company. We get so bogged down in the minutia of life's situations that we can't see beyond it. Yet, like the woman in Mark's gospel, you might just have to throw caution to the wind, consider something drastic. If you want to change, you gotta take a risk. By law, since she was ritually unclean, it was daring, desperate, and a risk of a woman of her nature to touch any holy man, especially Jesus. She heard that Jesus was going to be passing by. You see, the presence of God is everywhere all the time. She thought, if only I could just touch his robe. She didn't want to speak to him. She didn't ask one of the disciples to say, hey, psst, psst, can you introduce me to him and maybe I can ask him to heal me? She didn't beg or plead. She didn't even want to touch his hand. She just wanted to touch his robe. That's how drastic she felt. That's the risk she was willing to take. She slipped in from behind, the message says, perhaps because maybe she still had doubt or concern that it might not work. Maybe she thought it would upset Jesus and he would not grant her healing. Last time I checked, Matthew 11:28 states, come unto me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Then again, she may have thought, I'll touch his garment, surrender to the background, and the healing may start. Perhaps you have had a maybe kind of sort of approach to bringing about change in your situation or circumstance. You may sense your faith may not be enough. The problem is too big, it's too real, the situation just won't change. A part of you wants to believe, yet another part of you is mired in what you've been through. You've tried everything else. Why not? Let's try some faith, hoping that history won't repeat itself. You approach God gingerly, timidly, thinking, I've tried everything else, God. I know, you've seen me going through this. Is there anything you can do for me? Nothing works. I'm still suffering. This situation, this circumstance just won't go away. Well, 2 Timothy 1:7, for God did not give us a spirit of cowardice or timidity, but rather of power and love and self-control. The word is clear. You have not because you ask not. The word also does not say tap and the door shall be open. It's quite clear. It states knock and the door shall be open. A tap is being unsure, not believing fully, having a maybe kind of sort of approach. A knock resonates assurance. You're bringing attention to the matter at hand. I'm not advocating, mind you, that you get indignant with God, demanding of God that what you want. But like the woman of today's story, you must have conviction in what you're seeking, in your desired outcome. Through faith, be convicted in what you want. Be convinced and have a firm belief in not just your desire, but that faith will be the substance of that desire, and faith will be the evidence to bring about completion or restoration, whatever the outcome is to be. When the woman decided to take that risk, she was convinced, and she knew that once she touched the robe of Jesus, she would be healed. And with the touch of his robe, a single touch of his robe, she was healed. The flow of blood dried up and change happened immediately. At that very moment, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who touched me?" Now, the disciples are a little perplexed because there's all these people pressing against him. But Jesus was very clear. I felt a discharge of energy. In other words, her single risk of a simple touch of his outer garment through faith connected her with the source of healing power within Jesus, and it was then transferred to her. Healing had poured out from Jesus because of her conviction of simply wanting to change by touching his robe. In her conscious mind, she saw herself healed. She saw herself whole. She saw herself complete, the substance of things hoped for. And just as she pressed through the crowd, she pressed through the negative thoughts, the negative energy, the doubters, the haters, the detractors. Her faith nurtured that conviction in the spirit world, and when she took that risk to touch the divine, to connect with the source of all power, faith transformed her conscious thought of cleanliness and healing into a physical being of whole and complete healing. Faith, a simple touch. No grandiose prayer, no ritual, no running up and down the street, no running in and out of the church house praying incessantly. Just simply being convicted in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit that it's going to work as you want it to, but you got to be convicted in your faith to make it work. You've got to understand that. Maybe is not being convicted. Sort of is wishy-washy. Hoping against hope and maybe it's going to work is going to get you just that. More affirmations of maybe, less conviction of hope that it will work. It's about faith. You're very quiet today. That's good. You're thinking. Don't think too much. Let faith do the work. You can clap with that. Give faith a hand, because faith is real. Faith got us from A Street to R Street. Faith got your child through that rough patch in school. Faith brought about the change that made your marriage whole again. Faith was with you when the doctor said you came in last year and you had a diagnosis of cancer, but this year you are cancer-free. Faith was there when you played Little League Baseball and you wanted to hit that home run. And you got up to the plate and you got ready and you swung and you got ready and you prepped yourself and you saw that ball go over that right field fence. And you hit the ball the first time, it didn't go through. You hit it the second time, it was strike 2. On that third strike, you said, I'm going to do it. You hit that ball, boom. Not just over the right field fence, it went into the parking lot. Because you had faith that you could do it. You saw it in your head, and it came out through your actions, and now it's physically represented by a home run. That's faith. Campbell's Soup. Huge segue there. Has a campaign slogan. At least I think they still use it. You take a can of soup, you open it, heat up the content, stir it occasionally. Then when it's ready, you would pour it into a bowl, cup, and enjoy it. Well, I'm going to borrow that today because the response to that is, yes. I'm going to apply it this way. You find yourself in a situation, be it a relationship, on the job, at school, in your personal space. You need to change it. You want something different. You know that it's not working for your highest good. Now, you can mix in a maybe kind of sort of approach, hoping that it will change, thinking perhaps things will work out, only to find yourself stuck in that situation, not with faith. See, take that same situation, stir in faith through a convicted heart of your desired outcome. Even as things may tend to heat up, you don't even have to stir it occasionally. Faith is working behind the scenes, in the recesses of your heart, your spirit, and your consciousness, preparing you. And at the right and perfect moment, faith will pour out the contents of your internal desire, manifested as the highest good for you to enjoy and to be a light for those around you. And all you can say is, and so it is. Good. Amen. Thank you.